I've been having a lot of conversations with women lately who feel just off, not completely burned out, but not energized either. They're showing up, they're doing well, and from the outside, everything looks good. But something just isn't clicking anymore. And sometimes we're quick to label that feeling as burnout. But what if that's not actually what it is? What if it's something else that we've just haven't had language for yet? That's what we're going to talk about inside today's episode. You'll find out what that other word really is besides burnout. Welcome to the Discovering Your Calling podcast. I'm your host, Sherry Miter. I'm here to help you unleash your strengths and get clarity on your calling. I believe when you find your purpose in life, fulfillment, joy, and success will follow. If you're ready, pop in those earbuds, hit that follow button, and join me on this journey toward discovering your calling. So I was thinking about this recently, and it brought me back to a season in my Mary Kay business when I was a leader in direct sales. And, on paper, everything looked really good. And I was leading my weekly meetings as I was, one of my obligations as a sales director, doing these weekly meetings. I was pouring into my trainings, showing up consistently, dressed even in a suit and heels. And, I genuinely loved the women I was working with. They were incredible. They were kind. They were loyal. They were fun. And they showed up for the community, for the connection, for the confidence. But if I'm being honest, it got to a point that something started to feel off. I dreaded those Monday night meetings. I didn't look forward to doing them. And sometimes I wondered if it was worth the effort anymore. And it took me a while to name it because, again, nothing was really wrong. We were doing quite well as a unit. But I realized I was craving something different. And looking back now, I can see how much of that was connected to how I'm naturally wired. My number 2 Clifton Strengths talent theme is maximizer, which means I get energized by growth and excellence and helping people step into a higher level of what's possible. While one of my lower themes is developer, which comes in at number 26 out of 34 for me. And developer is more about patiently nurturing growth wherever someone is. That is not me. That's not my talent. And what I had started to notice then, and I didn't even know necessarily about maximizer and developer when this first started. I was just starting to learn about Clifton Strengths at this point in my career. But what I had noticed was that many of the women, in fact, I would probably say at this point, most of the women I was leading, they were happy exactly where they were. They weren't looking to really build a thriving business. They didn't want to step into leadership or grow in a way that energized me. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The career field that we had and not career field, but the plan that we had was okay no matter what level you wanted to reach in our company. But for me, it started to feel like I was pouring a lot more time and energy into something that wasn't stretching me anymore. I wasn't totally exhausted, and I definitely wasn't overwhelmed. And I kept showing up, doing the work, and doing it well. But deep down, I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't growing. And if I'm really being honest here, I was bored. Now, back then, I didn't have that language at the time, and I didn't really understand what was happening. And I might have just said I was just tired or I needed a break. But looking back now, I can clearly see I had simply outgrown that season. And that's why this conversation matters. Because sometimes what we want to label as burnout is actually something different. It is boredom. And both burnout and boredom are real and both matter. Now, burnout comes from too much demand, too much pressure, too much sustained stress. Boredom, on the other hand, often comes from not enough of the right things, not enough challenge, not enough growth, not enough meaning or stretch. And the tricky part is they can feel really similar. The symptoms of them. Actually, is it the symptoms or the effect of them? Anyway, they can feel really similar to us, causes low energy, that feeling of disconnection, sometimes feeling like we're just going through the motions. And it's really hard to discern, especially for high achieving women, because you're still performing, you're still getting things done. So it's really easy to miss what's actually going on underneath. And sometimes it's not this loud frustration, it's a quieter kind of tension. It's like, this should feel more fulfilling than it does. Or, I've worked hard to get here, so why does it feel a little flat? Or even, is this just a phase? Or is something actually shifting? Now, if you've been listening, my friend, and you're wondering what this might be for you, I just want to give you a few questions you can just gently answer to yourself. You don't have to journal about these because I feel like you already know the answer inside. But ask yourself, do I feel better after real rest, like a week vacation? Or do I come back to work still stressed and just off? Am I overwhelmed or am I under challenged? Am I craving relief from having too much responsibility or am I craving growth? And maybe even ask, what part of my talents or skills aren't being used right now? And again, these questions aren't meant to be overthought. You don't need to overthink them because deep down, you already know the answer. And this is where I want to offer you a different way to think about what you might be feeling. For high achieving women, especially, what we often label as boredom, because it's not burnout, we know that now, it is boredom, but it can actually even go a layer deeper. I like to think of it as divine restlessness. It's that quiet, persistent feeling that something in you is ready for more, even if you can't fully explain what that more is yet. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's just persistent. And here's what I've come to believe. That feeling, that boredom, that divine restlessness, it's not the end of something. It's often the beginning of something. And looking back to that season of my life where I was bored, or now we would call it divine restlessness, of the meetings and who I was working with, is something new was already brewing in me. I just didn't recognize it yet. And that's the challenge, my friend. You know, it would be easy to ignore this because we can't label it yet. We don't recognize what it is. But here's the problem. If we continue to just ignore that and we keep pushing it down or brushing it off and not taking it seriously, it's often when that boredom can quietly turn into the burnout. And looking back now, I do believe that that boredom I felt in that season was for me the beginning of the burnout I experienced a few years later. Because when we choose to ignore that sense of outgrowth, when we keep showing up in spaces that no longer stretch us, when we silence that there's got to be more feeling, it starts to drain us in a different way. But here's the good news, my friend. Boredom, or that divine restlessness, is often much, much easier to shift than burnout. Because burnout doesn't always mean you need to burn everything down. You need to step away from it all immediately, like burnout could. Sometimes it means you need to take on a new challenge. Maybe in the role you're already in, you just need to have new challenges presented to you if that's possible. Sometimes it means stepping into a different level of responsibility if that's available to you. Sometimes it's just learning to use your natural strengths, your natural talents and strengths in a brand new way. And yes, sometimes it does mean it's time for a bigger change. But the goal here isn't to react, it's to respond. Boredom isn't something to fear, it's something to listen to. Because not every discomfort, like burnout, is a red flag. Sometimes, in the case of boredom or divine restlessness, it's actually a green light. It's a signal that you've grown and your work and life needs to grow with you. So, my friend, if something in you has been feeling off, you're allowed to get curious about that. You are allowed to want more. even when what you have is good. It is possible to appreciate where you are, but still recognize when you've outgrown it. That's the way I felt. There was nothing wrong with where I was. Where I was a great place to be. And I did love it until I didn't anymore. And it was okay for me to say, I'm called for something more. And if that's the way you're feeling right now, I want to tell you about something I just created called. It is my new year-long mentorship experience for women who know something is shifting and are ready to actually do something with that. It combines the depth of one-on-one work from Discovering Your Calling Academy with the power of small group mentorship and coaching. So you're not just gaining clarity, but you're moving into real implementation and growth. And whether you're navigating what's next or you're ready to elevate where you are, this is about taking that feeling of there's got to be something more and turning it into something tangible and aligned. We're starting in May, and I'm currently inviting 5 founding members into Called. So if you're feeling that pull, the next step is simply to book a conversation with me. We'll talk through where you are, what you're sensing, and whether this is the right fit for you. The link to book a call is in the show notes, or simply send me a DM on LinkedIn or Facebook. And we can talk about Called and what's in it. And like I said, to see if it's the next best step for you. Now, on the other hand, if you're not quite ready for that step yet, but you know something is shifting, come join us inside the new Calling and Clarity Collective. It's a Facebook community where we have real conversations around strengths, leadership, business, and personal growth. And it's where we'll continue this conversation here on the podcast over in the Facebook community. So it's where we start the conversation here, but we continue it on the Facebook community. I also want to invite you to tune in next Monday where we will talk about what it means if you're starting to wonder, what if I am in the wrong career? And why that might not mean what you think it does. But today, my friend, I want to leave you with this. If something in you has been feeling off, don't rush to label it. Get curious, because it might not be burnout. It might just be divine restlessness and a sign that you are ready for more. So let me know your thoughts as we continue the conversation inside the Calling and Clarity Collective. Thank you for spending this time with me. My hope is something you heard today inspires you to take action toward discovering your calling. I just have 2 favors to ask of you before you go. 1, if you found value and enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and you might hear your review read on a future episode. And 2, can you share this episode with 3 friends who will also enjoy it as much as you did? By doing these things, you will help us grow the podcast to make a bigger impact on the world. And until next week, remember, you've been created to live a life of fulfillment, freedom, purpose, success, and joy. Do you ever feel like you've checked all the boxes of success, but deep down you still wonder, is this really it? You're not alone. And that's exactly why I wrote Discovering Your Calling, the ambitious woman's guide to finding fulfillment, freedom, impact, and joy. One reader said, this book is more than just a career guide. It's a catalyst for transformation. Another called it empowering, insightful, and exactly what ambitious women need. Inside, I'll walk you through 8 powerful phases or waypoints to help you uncover your strengths, reignite your dreams, and finally create a career and life that feels like it was designed for you. Don't keep drifting. Don't keep settling. Your calling is waiting, and this book will show you how to claim it. Grab your copy of Discovering Your Calling today, available now on Amazon.